Well, sleepovers at a friend's house have become a rite of passage for kids in this country, but is that rite of passage beneficial and safe for kids? Tammy Schamuhn is a registered psychologist, co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology, done a lot of work in this area, Tammy, so thanks so much for being here. We should say we're talking mostly about sleepovers with friends, not necessarily family sleepovers.
Right.
We're talking about sleepovers with friends, but what do you want parents to think about when they're considering sleepovers?
Well, I mean, there are good and bad parts to this, right? Like there's benefits where kids can develop resiliency and they get to be exposed to different family cultures. They learn to be separate from their parents, so they learn to be more confident. But the one piece of information I really want parents to know is that when I treat children who have had sexual trauma, it used to be 40% of that trauma of sexual abuse came from peer-to-peer abuse, meaning kids their own age or a little bit older. And now that stat is 70%.
Really?
So I'm actually more concerned about my kids being abused by another kid than another adult.
Interesting.
So when we think sleepovers, we have to keep that statistic in mind. So how well do we know this family? Do we know who's there? Where are the kids going to be sleeping? So I know in our house, when we have sleepovers, kids actually have to sleep in a common area.
Okay.
They just sleep in the living room, or we separate kids in different bedrooms. There's no sleeping in bedrooms together.
Right, which, you know, as part of traditionally sleepovers is you're away and you get to kind of commingle, that sort of thing. So this is things to consider if you're sending your kid, but also hosting a sleepover.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the rules that we implemented just this year was that when kids come to our house, if they have a device, we lock it up. So there is no device, because I don't know what other parents are doing with their screen rules. Like, I don't know if kids have access to pornography on their phones, inappropriate pictures, and I'm not going to monitor those kids' phones. That's not up to me to decide what other families are doing. But in our house, we have to keep that separate. And so if my kids are going to someone else's house, I'm going to ask those parents, what are their screen rules? Like, where are the kids' devices going to be? If they have devices, do they have parental controls on their devices? These sorts of things. So it's an awkward conversation to have. Same with older siblings. I want to know if those kids have older kids in the house. Who else lives in the house? Are there firearms in the house? Are those firearms locked up? It's awkward, but it's very, I think if you're going to go this route, you don't want to be a statistic.
Sure.
So you want to ask these really difficult conversations. And if we can't have these vulnerable conversations with these other families, it just might not be a good idea to move forward.
And potentially it could lend to that, because sometimes you don't know a ton about the people that you're hosting or that you're sending your kids to. And if you can't have that conversation, then maybe that's the barrier, right?
Yeah. And so once you get to know these families, you can feel really good about sending them there. And asking those questions allows us to have those really great relationships with our neighbors and our communities. And I don't want to deter families from having that. So just be ready to have them. But it's okay to not have them too.
Okay.
So one thing my business partner does with her girls is she does just these kind of warm-up trials where the kids can stay right till bedtime. They put on their pajamas, they brush the teeth, but then they go home right before the end of the night. Your kids can do that too. So they're still part of the sleepover right to the point where the kids go to bed, for families who aren't comfortable.
That's a great question too, because sometimes maybe your kid isn't ready for a sleepover or doesn't necessarily want to, but there is pressure because you know, it's supposed to be this big fun thing and a rite of passage. So how do you know when your kid's ready?
Well, I would do a dry run with family, like grandparents, cousins, like, you know, just to see how they do with that. Do the dry run where they stay up to a certain time. Practice scenarios with them where they're going and they're staying away at a neighbor's house for part of the day, just to see like how they do with that. And just play it by ear. Allow them a time to check in with you when they're at the sleepover too, and allow them an out.
Sure.
So what can they say to the host parent that maybe is like a code word, like I want to go home? Like what is that code word so they're not embarrassed?
Yeah.
When kids spend the night at my house, I check in with them separately away from the other kids to see if they feel good and if they want to go home or not.
Okay.
And I don't shame them. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in creating a safe and ultimately you want it to be a fun atmosphere. But this is a very important conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for your advice, Tammy. Really appreciate it. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit instituteofchildpsychology.com. And if you have a question for our parenting experts, as always, you can text it to us at 10400. The text line is open, and we'll take those questions right to the people with the answers.